So with the modal converted, we're only using functional components here. To conclude this module, I now want to build a custom hook. Because in this module here, we only saw use state and use effect. For a good reason, because these are the most important hooks. And I hope it was helpful seeing them in action and seeing which roles we previously filled with class-based components and lifecycle hooks they can play, or how they can replace that old code. But we can also create a custom hook in this project actually. And that is related to our with error handler higher order component. Now obviously we can leave that component as it is, but this entire logic I have in here, all this logic, we can outsource this into a custom hook actually, and then we could use this hook in any component where we want to find out whether we had an HTTP request error or not. And then we could decide in that component where we use that hook what we want to do. We don't have to show our modal, we could do anything we want. So I'll create a new folder, which I'll name hooks, and in there I'll add my HTTP error handler.js file. Now in there, I'll import from React, not React itself because I'm not rendering any JSX in here, but I will import use state and use effect because these are the hooks I'm using in with error handler as well. Now I'll cut all that logic here in with error handler and go back to the HTTP error handler and export a default function here, which will receive Axios or the HTTP client, whatever you want to name it. You can name this argument however you want, object. And in the function body, I'll paste in that logic we extracted from with error handler. Axios now should be replaced in all these places here with HTTP client. And now this assumes that we could pass in any client as long as it uses this API. So as long as it has an intersetters field where we can use request use and so on, which will probably only be true for Axios, but nonetheless. Then I'm managing my state up here. We're setting up the intersetters. We're cleaning up the intersetters when they change. And in the end here, I want to return an array where I return my error object and the error confirmed handler. So I return the error we might have gotten and a function that allows us to clear the error. And now we can import our custom hook here into with error handler and therefore get rid of the hook imports there. So let's import use, because your custom hooks should always start with a lowercase use HTTP error handler from, and now go to the hooks folder and then import from that HTTP error handler JavaScript file without the file extension here, of course. And now here we can call use HTTP error handler, and this function is created such that it returns this array with the error and that function to clear the error. So therefore, I can also use for this specific custom hook array destructuring and get my error object and maybe a clear error method. And then here I will call or assign clear error down there. And well, I will leave this as error because I'm naming this error up here too. Now, important, I'm not using array destructuring here because we would have to with hooks. The fact that this looks similar to how we use state is simply a coincidence. You can return whatever you want in your custom hooks. You don't even have to return something. You can also have a hook that just does something and doesn't return anything. But you could also return a number, text, an object, an array with 5 elements. Here it just happens to be an array with 2 elements, which looks similar to use state, but has nothing in common otherwise. So now we have use HTTP error handler here. And of course, technically that will still achieve the same as we did before. By the way, we have to pass in Axios. That's important because our custom hook here expects to get the HTTP client, so Axios in our case, as an argument. But now we could use this hook here anywhere in our application, and then it will always give us back an error object and a clear error method. And of course, we can also keep it in our higher order component, which we wrap around other components. But if we ever have another component where we want to use that same error handling logic, but we don't want to show a modal, but let's say simply output something on the page, then we can use our hook, get that error object, and do whatever we want to do with that error object in the JSX code of the component we're using this hook in. So now, if we save that, let's see if it works by locking down the ingredients again in Firebase. And if I now reload this page, I still get that error modal. So that still seems to work just fine as it did before, now with our custom hook doing its work.